right. Well, welcome now to the show. Writer for Slime Magazine, Edmonton Journal, Chris O'Leary. Chris, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Avry. How are you doing?
Fantastic. I wanted to bring on talk some NBA. And well, Chris, Gasky man, the top story, Miami Heat, 27 wins in a row. How shocked are you by it? Like, how in awe are you of the Heat right now, Chris?
It's incredible. I mean, I know Houston ran off, I think it was 22 games a few years ago. But even for a team to break that and just, when you think about the magnitude of 27 games through this season, and you look at some of those wins, especially on the tail end, the comebacks against Boston and Cleveland. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, I think LeBron's playing kind of, I think, at his full potential right now. I think this is the best we've ever seen him play. And, I think it's one of those things that when you're in the moment, you think it's awesome, but I think when the season's over, we'll look back on it and just, really kind of take this in. I think it's a pretty incredible thing.
No, most definitely. I mean, you mentioned they were down. I mean, they're down to Cleveland. They're down to Cleveland by 27 points. I mean, any team in the league, when you're down by 27, the game's done. From them to come back and beat the Cavaliers in Cleveland, that was just insane.
It was amazing, and I think the thing that when you have something like that happen, I think a team can, just they get a feeling of almost like invincibility from it. I think, and not in the sense of like overconfidence, but just whatever kind of trouble comes their way through a game or a season or something, I think they can look back to that, and then and the same thing. I think they played Boston the night before and they were down 21 or 22, I believe, and came back and won that. I think you can draw from those things in the playoffs, and I think this win streak is going to help them going forward. And I mean, pending injury or something, I can't see a team beating Miami in a 7-game series right now.
Really, I know people are saying that the Heat could possibly sweep through they could sweep the playoffs. Is that possible for this team to possibly go 4-0 all their series to finals? Could that happen? Is that realistic at all, Chris?
I mean, I think it's a lot tougher. I think what they've done right now is incredibly tough, and I think even if they get to 34, it's going to be a difficult road for them. I think it's a lot harder in the playoffs just because you're seeing the same teams repeatedly. And, they might sweep the first 2 rounds or something like that against Milwaukee in the first round or whoever they get in the second. But I think, even the series, the East is pretty weak and beat up and dilapidated this year. But, I think somewhere along the way they're going to run into a test. And, whether it's the NBA Finals or, a strong team in the East Finals that's playing well, I don't think they'll go 16-0. I think they will win it. But, I think 16-0 is a little unrealistic. And at the same time, if they do lose a game along the way, it's not the end of the world. It's still an incredible team, and it's I think basically an impossible thing to do. It's like something you see in a video game, right?
Exactly.
Where you run the table in the regular season, and then you just roll to the playoffs. It's pretty well unheard of. I think what was it, the 2001 Lakers lost once or twice?
Yes.
In the playoffs.
It was 2 games they lost that year.
Yeah, and even that was ridiculously hard, right? I think it's any combination of your opponent being hot and playing the right game, or just the numbers catching up with the hot team, like with Miami, and just them not being able to pull it out every single night, which I think is eventually going to happen at some point for them in the next few weeks.
No, it has to happen. And come playoff time, which team do you think could be that threat? Is it the Knicks? Is it Brooklyn? Is it Atlanta? Who could be that team that will give the Miami a fight, do you think, Chris, come playoff time?
Well, I think all those teams could give them a fight. At the same time, I think Miami could just run right over them, too. Like I said before, I know that injuries have really kind of altered the East right now. You look at Rondo out for Boston. Derrick Rose, I think even if he does come back, he's not going to be at his full strength or full capability just kind of coming in this late in the season. And if he doesn't play, the Chicago team's completely different anyway. And I think when they get to the finals, whoever comes out of the West is gonna give them a good run. Which that could be one of 3 or 4 teams. And I think San Antonio is best built to give them a run or maybe even beat them. But I think San Antonio would have the most realistic chance of doing it. I think OKC could give them another good run. Denver's played well. I don't see that finals matchup going well for Denver though. And even the Clippers too. I think a lot of people kind of labeled the Clippers as soft or just kind of a regular season powerhouse, and they're not quite there yet. But I think whoever does come out of the West will give them a good run. But yeah, like I said, I think this is Miami's year, barring injury or something like that.
I don't know, because, you mentioned San Antonio. I mean, their team, once again, another year of 50 wins. I mean, no team has gone, 15 years in a row with 50 wins. I mean, they're a team that has to be respected, and most definitely, I still think in the Western Conference, the Spurs.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And just kind of looking over the stats here before we were talking, and, I think it's only in the last few games that Miami has kind of moved ahead of San Antonio in the standings. And when you have a team that's won 27 in a row now, I think a season like the one San Antonio is having, kind of gets swept under the rug, or it's easier to ignore. But, like you said, just year in and year out, almost as long as I've been watching basketball, San Antonio's been a contender every single year. And there's no other team like San Antonio in this league. And, I think every single year they're in a position to win it. And even though they're getting older, it's almost like they get not better, but just more, I don't know what the word would be, like just more...
I tried to think of the word that would...
True to that San Antonio mold, where they just they execute, and they're patient, and they're experienced, and they just know how to use all of that to make it work for them. So I think I think the Spurs could give them a good run, but and it's kind of the finals I want to see. It might be a little slower and less entertaining than a rematch of last year's final, but I think in terms of competitiveness, I think that would be the best matchup.
No, of course, you mentioned, with the Spurs, Tim Duncan, he's been in the league since 97, and a guy in basketball, to be in the league for 15, 16 years, you're going to break down, but Tim Duncan, he just keeps on being more consistent and better. There's not many guys like him, especially at 7 feet tall, when guys like that big break down in year 15, year 16. He's not doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible just to watch. Him and Garnett, I guess Garnett's a little bit slowed by injuries this year, but just the durability, and he's changed his game a little bit too, and I think part of that's credit to that San Antonio organization, just for putting players around him that can kind of perform offensively and maybe take some of that load off of his shoulders. And I think he's thinking too. I think it happened last year in the playoffs with the Spurs, but when you get to the postseason and those guys are healthy, that trio of Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili, they've got a legit shot, and that's really an opportunity if Duncan's healthy enough, and he seems to be this year, that he can shine in the playoffs and just kind of turn it up and kind of be that old school dominant Tim Duncan that you probably grew up watching, and I've watched through the duration of his career.
Oh, of course, most definitely, Chris. And same with the Western Conference. Other teams have been shocking you so far. I've been shocked by Golden State. I just how they've been playing so well, because Mark Jackson had this team playing a well-oiled machine, even with the T-shirt jerseys, which I love so much.
I think you might go on your own on that one.
Really? You don't like the T-shirt? You don't like them?
The pinstripe shorts. I don't know how that all came to be. They said, let's give them a T-shirt and then throw the pinstripe shorts on there too, just for fun.
I like them both.
Yeah, I don't like that uniform.
No.
And it's too bad, because Golden State to me has one of those classic jerseys. From the time I started watching basketball in, I think, 90, 91. And from day one, for me, they've always had an awesome jersey, good color scheme, and I think they had an ugly alternate jersey in the late 90s, early 2000s with a weird logo or something on it. But, those blue and gold colors are a good makeup. And, yeah, this one is, it's a low point in jersey fashion for me. But I think, Golden State's definitely been a surprise. I didn't know, really going in with Mark Jackson, what he could do as a coach, just because he had no experience going, prior to this job. But he's done a good job with them, and Steph Curry's played amazing, and they've kind of built around. They put the pieces in place. David Lee's had a good year, and they're a lot of fun to watch. Derek Jackson's great too. We saw a lot of him in Toronto, and it's nice to see a guy like that who's a good team guy, just kind of gets to come in and be that vet and make big plays for him. He kind of reminds me of Chauncey Billups with the Pistons, right? Just those big shots down the fourth quarter and that kind of leadership that teams need. And they've definitely been a surprise. Houston's kind of surprised me too, just picking up Harden and I guess.
And Jeremy Lin too.
Still in the mix. Sorry.
And Lin too for Houston.
So yeah, absolutely, and it's been a really fun backcourt to watch. And then I guess on the other side of it too, the Lakers are right down there in the bottom of the standings, which I didn't see that coming at all this year. I thought they would have been a top 3 team in the West. So yeah, lots of surprises in the West, and still a lot of competition too.
No, it's true. I'm with the Lakers. What do you do with Dwight Howard? Do you bring him back? Do you trade him? That's just turned from a dream to a nightmare for LA right now.
Yeah, and then watching the game last night, I think it was Rick Bucher had said that they were LA's intention is to bring him back. And on paper, I can see why, just because physically there's nobody else like him, and I think they've been patient with him this year as he's recovered from back surgery, and he's shown shown bursts with that, athleticism that he had in Orlando and used to dominate when he was there. But I mean, I just think I look at the circuits that he was, largely responsible for creating in Orlando the last 2 years, and then and even this year, I just think he just hasn't really matured enough in my eyes that if I were a GM, which I'm not, that I wouldn't want him on my team just because I think he's more trouble, and I think he could ultimately be good for your team, but I think it would be a long and kind of painful road to go down with him. I think there are other players that you could build around and probably have success with faster.
No, most definitely. I mean, what does it say when you've been hearing more about Jody Meeks contributing more than Dwight Howard? What does that say? What would the Lakers this year?
Yeah, that says everything. But and I mean, there've been other factors too. I think a lot of people overlook Steve Nash playing basically with a broken leg, and come back from that, missing the first quarter of the season, and Kobe's been beat up this year, and they are as a core getting older, and I think Kobe's still a strong personality. I think he wants to win, but he wants to win his way, and I think there's been a personality clash there with him and Dwight, and I always wonder what Steve Nash thinks, just being in that locker room and watching and trying to make this season work, and how disappointing it's got to be for him too. There's a lot of, it's a strange team, and I kept thinking back at the beginning of the season, I was just like, well, that's a guaranteed finals, Miami and the Lakers, and it's going to be awesome. And yeah, it hasn't been. And I think Miami's going to be there, but I'd be surprised if LA gets in, and B, makes it to the second round.
No, of course. Mike D'Antoni now, I mean, they've gone through 3 coaches this year. Does D'Antoni stick around for another year at all, do you think, Chris?
I don't think so. He doesn't seem like the right fit, and I don't know if he's a one-trick pony in just his coaching style, where it worked in Phoenix, it didn't work in New York, and now it's not working in LA. Or, maybe the players and the organization was hoping to get Phil Jackson in there, and then, basically, whoever else comes in isn't Phil Jackson, and it's a letdown. But, no, it doesn't seem to be working there. And but then again, I mean, what do you do? I mean, I think, do you go out and get Phil Jackson now, or do you, go completely in another direction and then just basically, from a coaching standpoint, start over again and hope that you've got something that works next year? I don't know what they do right now just to kind of fix that problem. I don't think D'Antoni's the answer, though.
Right. And it's going to be tough for any coach that wants to be in the NBA because, I mean, they bring in a new coach, you're only going to be compared to Phil Jackson. And at what point do Laker fans finally move on from Phil? Because you can't bring him back whenever there's trouble every single season. You can't do it.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think Phil Jackson may have worked there. And the funny thing, too, is that Phil Jackson's got to me, I think he's got that ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. If that team failed this year with him there, it would have been Phil Jackson's fault in a lot of the fans' eyes, and probably some of the media, too. And, I think any other coach that comes in doesn't have that luxury. And, I think, like I said, you either get him or you don't, and if you don't, you've got to go in a different direction and get a coach in there that, has a plan and has a vision, and go from there and try and make it work. But I just think it's just such a bad idea to fire the coach 5 games into the season, and I don't know if they did that thinking that they would get Jackson in there. It just seemed all very kind of scatterbrained, and fix the leaky holes as they come up throughout the season. And whenever you're doing that, it's not going to work.
No, you're most definitely true in that, Chris. Before I let you go, I know I was talking to you earlier this week. Analytics in sports, they're really big in hockey, but analytics in the NBA has been getting big too. The Raptors have been using this cool sport view basketball system for analytics. I mean, you know more about it than I do, but I mean, they have the ability now to track basically every play on the court, which is kind of crazy in my mind through a computer system.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing technology. I mean, I don't know if anyone hasn't read the Grandma story that came out last week. Definitely should take a look at it. I mean, I'm not a big numbers guy. I was always bad at math at school. And I think the extent of my math experience is just calculating the differences in basketball games and, figuring out who's up by 20 or something. But so, I mean, I'm not a huge numbers guy. I never have been. But, I mean, it was a really interesting story. And the technology that they're using to just basically recreate, offensive and defensive sets through a computer program, and being able to, have that program say where you've made mistakes defensively, or whether you're helping too much or not picking up on help defense or what have you. It's good. I don't know. I read that story, and the thing that jumped out to me though was just it seemed like a kind of a desperate move from Brian Colangelo. I mean, you've got a guy who's on his last leg as a GM, waiting to be renewed, and at this point in the season, if his contract hadn't been picked up this year, it's not looking good for him. It seems a little desperate to kind of invite a big national media presence in like that to look at the team. And to me, I mean, he comes away from it just trying to save face and maybe win some people over to try and save his job. And I think he did that in a lot of ways at the expense of his coaching staff, the expense of some of his players who I think may have been a little embarrassed, to be in that story and exposed as a less than adequate defender, or someone who doesn't make good decisions in the offensive end. And it just seemed a little self-serving and desperate to me. And I kind of wondered why that would happen, But I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Colangelo at the end of the season, whether it's whether he comes back, or if he's back, if Dwayne Casey comes back. And it seemed like there was kind of those front office and the coaching staff seems to be on different pages with the analytics. So no playoffs to watch, but I guess that's what you can watch in April and May with the Raptors.
Exactly, and a lot of Primo Pasta commercial with Andrea Bargnani, eh?
Oh man, I hope not.
That'd be torture with NBA TV, just watching it over and over and over again as you see him sitting on the bench with his elbow just bandaged. What he could have been in the NBA and what he is now. I mean, when you saw him get drafted, Chris, do you think he'd be the superstar of this Raptors franchise years ago?
Well, I mean, I think when you take a guy at number one, there's it's a little unfair, but that's, I think, the expectation. When you take a guy number one, you think, if not this year, then within a small window, this guy's going to blossom and lead the team. And I think there was always a question on Bargnani in being picked. I mean, you look back at that draft year, it was a weak year, 06, I believe. And I mean, Brandon Roy emerged as the most skilled player from that class, and then his knees gave out on him, and that made the Bargnani pick look a little better. But I mean, Rudy Gay was in that pick in that draft class as well. LaMarcus Aldridge, I think, was in there too.
Yeah.
There were options, and just for the GM to come in and take a European. I mean, you remember this is only 3 years after Darko Milicic goes second overall, right?
That's true.
And I mean, it was a very similar scenario where this unknown European comes in, highly touted, blows people away in draft camps, but didn't have a lot of history or substance to his name, and they kind of take a risk on him, and I don't think it's worked. I don't think it ever really fully worked out the way they needed it to, because I think even when they drafted Bargnani, Chris Bosh was the guy, but even Chris Bosh didn't have that franchise ability on him. And then I don't know. I mean, I could talk about this forever, and that's to me. I mean, that team is like it's like the shirt that's been buttoned the wrong way on the top button.
It's true.
And all the buttons are mismatched the rest of the way down, and that's the team for the last 5 years, basically the whole time Colangelo has been there. I mean, they had a good year in 06, 07, but after that, you can start to see the flaws in that team, and I don't think Colangelo ever really addressed that. I think he just kind of kept bumping inadequate guys up the ladder to fill the roles vacated by the last guy. And I wonder now if it's going to catch up with him at the end of this season, but I mean, they renewed him before, so maybe they'll renew him again. Who knows?
No, I imagine will be. I mean, with this Raptors team, I mean, do you see a silver lining for this team eventually? Maybe a year or two. Will it be a time where the Raptors are hopefully once again a 35 to 40 win team? Because I know 40 wins, 30 wins get you in the playoffs in Eastern Conference in some years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it definitely could. And I mean, they showed a glimpse. When they traded for Rudy Gay, I think Rudy Gay. I don't know if he's a guy that you can absolutely build around, where he's an MVP candidate kind of player, but there's only so many of those in the league, and I think two of them play in Miami, unfortunately, for the rest of the league. But no, I think they can improve, but I mean, they're almost back in that same cycle where they need. So eventually, they would need someone to get them into that next level. Who where when you want to get past the first round or make the playoffs isn't enough anymore. I mean, I think the Raptors have been so bad for the last few years that I think getting back into the playoffs would be a welcome relief. But it's not I don't think it's a long-term fix. I think they're still looking for that player to be that long-term fix for them.
No, I think they are also. And Chris, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. Hopefully we can do it again sometime on the show.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
Of course, Chris. Talk to you soon, man.
All right, take care, Avry.
Yeah. Chris O'Leary from the Edmonton Journal and Slam Magazine. Fantastic stuff.